Okay, so we're ready to go. Good morning, it's Al Emery with Momentum, and today we're talking about MYOB MyStaffInfo, which is an extended module for MYOB Exo Payroll, and it covers, it's really an employee self-service. Okay, I've just got a message that the audio's not great, so just one moment, and I'll switch phones. Okay, that should be a bit better. So yeah, MYOB MyStaffInfo is employee self-service and manager self-service. So employees can access leave information and apply for leave. Managers can review and approve. Employees, or all employees, including managers, can access pay slips and payment summaries. Depending on the security you set up, people can update their personal details, and that will update your payroll. There's a timesheet module, and there is approval associated with that. And yeah, those are the main areas of the software. So what I'm going to go through first is how you set it up in conjunction with your MYOB Exo Payroll. So the modules we're looking at is Exo Payroll and MYOB Exo MyStaffInfo. So MyStaffInfo is a website. It runs in a browser, but you control it from within your payroll application. So we'll show you that first. So this is the MyStaffInfo application loaded in my browser, and all of these tabs and what I can do within those tabs is controllable from within the payroll application. So I'll come back to how all of these work and go through all of the features in the browser. We'll start by looking at the MyStaffInfo Management Console. So when it's installed, you'll have under the Pay option within your Exo Payroll a MyStaffInfo drop-down menu. When you enter that, once you're up and running, mostly you're just doing a synchronize, which uploads and downloads changes and leave requests and timesheets and things. But the setup is basically most of what you see on the screen here. So you can nominate which employees can access MyStaffInfo. Normally it would be all, and when an employee is terminated, then their access is disabled. You then have managers, so you can pick from your list of employees who are going to be the managers that can review and edit and approve certain things. So you can have multiple managers that you select from your list, and when you click the right pointing arrow, it will add them as a manager. Then you can divide your employees into groups so that you can have different groups of employees reporting to different managers. So typically there'd be an all employees group, so that somebody like the payroll person might want to be able to review certain information, and the most efficient way to do that is have an all employees group. But then you can divide, you can have as many additional other groups as you like, which could be admin versus factory staff, or engineers versus admin. It really can be anything you like. So you can have as many groups as you like. Then you add employees to the groups you want them to belong to. So everybody would be in the all employees group. But in my example, we might say we've got 3 people in the admin team. Then you assign employee groups to managers. So in my database, I've only got 1 manager, and I can have all groups assigned to that manager. In your own business, you can have multiple managers, and Edward might just look after the admin team, and somebody else might look after the engineering team or the factory team, that sort of stuff. Then you have the ability to manage security. And the security basically allows you to decide what employees and managers can do within the MyStaffInfo website. So let me just bring up an example of that. One moment. So if we look at security, on the right-hand side, you'll see a tree, which is basically all the different screens and tabs on the MyStaffInfo website. And you can say, for example, managers, and this is our live system, so I'm the manager, and I basically can tick or untick whatever I should have access to. So that can be quite granular in that, leave requests can be filtered in or out to include personal, annual, long service, loo time, RDOs, unpaid leave, etc. And commonly you would have for example, a manager. Only a manager would be able to accept or decline leave requests, and an employee obviously would not. So you can basically work through those by role, for all managers or all employees, or you can actually just pick specific people and update their profile. So it can be done at an individual employee level or at a role level, roles being managers and employees. Okay? Jump back to my demo. So you've got security, you have preferences where you can have a website administrator, and the administrator can, in the MyStaffInfo website, update some additional settings and set up email templates. So email templates automatically get sent, for example, when an employee submits a leave request or when a manager has approved a leave request. There's an automatic email that can be sent, and you can update what the predefined wording in those templates is. All right, so once you've done that, you basically synchronize with your MyStaffInfo website, and it will then synchronize with the data in your payroll system. What that means is when an employee logs in, so I'm logged in as Thomas, and Thomas is an employee, not a manager. And based on his security profile that we just set, he can see pretty much everything that you might allow. So when an employee logs in, there's a dashboard, same with a manager, and it will give them a to-do list of things that they have not accessed that they probably should, as well as quick links to things that people commonly use, like payslips, leave balances, leave applications, timesheets. And there is the ability to publish news articles as well. So you've got your dashboard, you have contact details, and this is where an employee could, if you give them access to do it, can update their address, phone number, email address, bank account details, and user-defined fields. And once they update those and you synchronize with MyStaffInfo, it will update your payroll system. So that in itself can be a time saver in that, you know, if people move house or change phone number or email address or bank account, it doesn't need to be a manual process for the payroll person to be doing it. A manager, depending on their security profile, can view and update their own personal information and can be given access to view and update personal information for employees that report to them. An option would be if you didn't want employees updating their own information, but so long as they had informed their manager, the manager could do it for them. There's a locator board. It isn't widely used really, but it does have the option for different people and managers to set their status as in, out, on holiday, or off work due to being sick. The main areas that get used the most is leave management, payslips and reports, and timesheets, so we'll focus on those. So you have leave balances, and again, based on an employee and a manager's security profile, they'll see all or some of these options. So for example, annual leave, entitlements and balance. The entitlements can be hidden, all of it can be hidden. You could choose not to show personal leave if you wanted to, but all leave types can be accessible for any employee. So before they make a leave application, they can check whether they've got sufficient leave before they apply. There's a leave calendar, and that will show any submitted or pending leave requests as well as approved or declined by leave type in a month view at a time. So whatever has been pre-booked or pre-approved would be visible, and a manager can see all employees in the groups that have been assigned to them. So that's an effective way for a manager before they review or approve a leave request. They can check if it conflicts with existing team members' leave requests. Then you can make a leave request. So there's two ways of doing it. From the Make Leave Request screen, choose the leave type. The Send Request To defaults to whoever that employee's manager is. And then they can choose the dates and step through it, and it shows their leave balance on this screen as well. So let's say Thomas wants to apply for next Thursday and Friday. It will then default the normal hours that would be deducted from leave, and they can submit it. Okay, so that automatically results in an email going to Thomas's manager with a hyperlink back to the MyStaffInfo website, so they can log in and review, edit, approve. Okay, so the My Leave Requests is basically the list of any pending and or approved requests that employee's had. So an employee and a manager can see all leave requests historically, can see that these ones were not only approved, but they've been downloaded into the payroll, and one was declined. And then we've got the current one, which is pending. What happens from a payroll perspective with a approved leave request is, as a part of processing a pay, so if you're doing payroll currently in Exo Payroll, you'd be familiar with the pay cycle. It adds one step to the pay cycle. So you do step 2, which is to create your current pay or open the current pay. Then you go to the MyStaffInfo console and you synchronize. Synchronizing will basically download any approved leave request as well as any employee changes, and it will also download approved timesheets. So the end result of that is in your pay cycle for any particular employee. The leave management part of their pay would automatically be updated based on the approved leave in MyStaffInfo. So there's really no additional steps for the payroll user to do apart from synchronizing with MyStaffInfo. If there are future approved leave requests, so let's say Thomas not only had put in a leave request for next week or the current pay period, but also had approved leave requests for Christmas, they sit there as downloaded and approved, but won't update a pay until the payroll user nominates that they should. There's a basic employee messaging. Again, most people use their internal email system and/or a internal bulletin board, but it can be used to create messages, read messages, and post news items. Pay slips and reports. So this is a very commonly used area. Advantage of having your pay slips and reports published on MyStaffInfo is the employee can keep historical copies of all their pay slips going back, their entire employment, and it means that if they are applying for a rental property, a loan, or need access to copies of pay slips, they don't need to come and get them from the payroll person again. They can reprint them anytime you like. So for each individual employee, that's controlled in Exo Payroll in the report distribution options. So that will automatically mean that their pay slips and year-end pay summary, if they're ticked for MyStaffInfo, that's where they'll be uploaded to. They could be emailed as well. They could be printed as well. You can do all three if you want to. The pay slips, the same as the emailed ones, are password protected using the same password as so this password here is their payslip password and their MyStaffInfo password. So it's exactly the same as you would see coming out of your payroll if you were printing or PDFing the report. So the payment summaries automatically will post to MyStaffInfo, and you can in fact run other reports. You'd need to be fairly selective with what report you ran, but any report in payroll, and it could be a days taken report, for example. All reports now have output options, which include MyStaffInfo. When you run them, if you've selected MyStaffInfo, it will then prompt you to say which employees should see this report. So obviously you'd need to be careful what reports you might choose to publish to MyStaffInfo, that they weren't sharing confidential information. But there's certain information or certain reports that you certainly can share, or you can run them individually for each employee. So you do have the option of publishing other reports besides payslips and payment summaries to MyStaffInfo. And then the last tab is the timesheet tab. So timesheets is, we've got a couple of people on the line who predominantly use Exo, the job costing module. So I should be clear that the timesheet application that's part of MyStaffInfo doesn't have any reference to jobs or job costing. It's purely a payroll timesheet. So the way that works is employees can enter time. They can do it manually by saying, okay, I'm entering timesheets. I want to enter 1 day, or they could put in 5 days. Let's say it's 1. And then you can simply choose days and start finish time. So I might go back from Monday. So started at 8:30, finished at 5, had a 1-hour break, and it was all ordinary time. So a pretty simple data entry interface. You can then quickly say copy that 4 times, and it'll complete the rest of the week exactly the same. It does handle the different pay rates called rate codes in Exo Payroll, and it does handle different cost centers. So if everything's left blank, it'll default to ordinary, rate 1, and whatever the employee's default cost center is. But employees can change wage types, rate codes, cost centers. That'll get submitted to the manager. If the manager sees anything wrong, the manager can either message the employee or edit it and fix it. And once it's approved, then it can be downloaded to populate the wages part of payroll. So that's the manual way of doing it. It can be, and it's quite easy to do, quite efficient. We've got customers with a couple of hundred employees managing their whole pay timesheet process this way. In addition to that, what can be useful for an employee is they can load a previous pay. So if they know that they've worked, mostly the same days and hours this week, or this pay that they did last pay, they can just pick a pay they've done before and reload it. Okay. The other thing that they can do is set up a template. Now, a manager could do this on their behalf, or an employee can do it themselves. So the template can be what their normal hours or roster almost is. And the template and the timesheets can be, as I entered that last example, start, finish, break, or they can just simply be total number of hours entered as wages. So there's actually 2 ways of doing it. This template has both. You would never have both in one template. You'd have one or the other. But that just means that an employee can, rather than manually enter the timesheet, they can pick a template that they have, and they could have multiple, and apply the template. And that basically populates what was there. So several ways of looking at that. Employees can also look at any historical time entries that they have entered over time. So a manager has a summary view of that. So they'll get a summary view. Unfortunately, I can't show it to you because my manager login is disabled this morning, which is bad timing, but a manager can basically see a summary which will simply list the employees, the hours they've entered for that pay period, broken down by ordinary time and a half, double time, leave. They can either just click on that and approve it, or they can drill into it and check the detail and either approve or edit or decline individual line entries on a timesheet. So they've got summary and drill-in access relating to timesheets. Once that's done, then basically the process is exactly the same as what I showed you with the leave. If the pay is open, you synchronize MyStaffInfo, and the end result is going to be that the employee, whatever had been approved on the timesheet tab, is going to appear in the wages tab. And there's really no entry for the payroll person to do. What most of our clients do that have MyStaffInfo implemented and working well is they open the pay, synchronize MyStaffInfo, and print a pay sheet, basically to check it, because there's normally very little else that needs to be done. So it'll then give them the breakdown. In some cases, there's nothing else to do. They distribute the pay slips and they're done. If anything needs to be checked or manually edited, like an allowance for a bonus or commission or something, that can be done, obviously, at any point. And I will point out that in MyStaffInfo, apart from the timesheet tab on the Enter Time, it is possible to have an employee enter allowances and have those checked. So it could be a way of an employee applying for a meal allowance, a travel allowance, etc., and with a manager approval. So that's all part of the timesheet option when you're managing timesheets in MyStaffInfo. What you would do then at the completion of the pay, so when you update a pay, as you would be aware if you're using Exo Payroll, it updates everybody's leave balances, etc. So once you've updated the pay, then you would synchronize MyStaffInfo again, because that will then update the same information on the MyStaffInfo website. So any employee looking at their leave balances would see updated leave balances based on the rollover of the last pay. So apart from the setup, it really just adds two simple steps where you basically create a pay, synchronize MyStaffInfo, complete the pay, update the pay, and then synchronize MyStaffInfo again. And it really only takes a couple of seconds for that to occur. So I can see in my MyStaffInfo that I've got downloaded leave requests. It won't allow me to see them if I have no open pay. And if I do, then it will automatically select leave requests that fall into the current pay date to be applied, and the future dated leave requests for Christmas, etc. I can select if my process is to pay people leave in advance, but normally you wouldn't do that. You'll just add them to the pay that they relate to. Okay, so that's the main areas of MyStaffInfo that we've covered. So updating personal information, viewing leave balances, applying approval, accessing pay slips and payment summaries, timesheets, management approval, all of that, and synchronization with Exo Payroll. In most cases, MyStaffInfo can be up and running in a couple of hours to about half a day, just to basically run through the setup process that we touched on in the management console, and then just a little bit of training for the employees. But being a website, you know, it's fairly intuitive to navigate around and do what you need to do. So that's it for today's webinar. Hopefully you found that informative as far as, you know, how MyStaffInfo can be integrated into your business, make things more convenient for your employees as well as your payroll administrator. So thanks for attending. If you have any questions, fire away. I'll stay on the line for a minute or two, and we'll be back in touch with our next webinar. There is a new release of Exo due out today, which has a lot of upgrades to the fixed assets module and a number of other areas. So we'll be circulating some information about that shortly. Thanks for attending today. Thank you.